Making news in property this month, HMRC is looking to investigate the short-term lettings market. Now, what they've actually done is they've done data matching against adverts on Air BnB and other short-term letting sites, and they're data matching that against tax returns where they know people own particular properties. The reasoning behind this is they're looking, and there is a concern within government that there is large-scale tax evasion, especially in the amateur market, who are doing short-term lets, maybe renting out a spare room in a property or moving out of their property over peak weekends to let it out and make a chunk of money, and that income is not being reported. Now, this comes against the backdrop of a number of councils around the UK putting specific planning policies in place that mean that short-term lets require planning permission. Most councils around the UK would require a short-term let to at least have a holiday let planning permission. There's a restriction on the amount of time you can let a standard family house or a standard flat on a short-term let if you don't have a specific planning permission. So you do need to be aware of that if you're considering that as one of your rental strategies for a property. Also, given the explosion of short-term rents around the UK, there's also a number of councils, a number of cities around the country who are looking at licensing and regulating this sector as well. So bear that in mind. Now, that's all things to welcome, in my opinion, because as we've seen with most other sectors of the property market, when there's regulation, when there's increased professionalism, when there's barriers to entry by planning permissions required, we tend to see the sector gets a little bit smaller for a period of time, it gets more professional, and it attracts a bit more of a premium in terms of what tenants will pay for those who are doing the job properly. Ultimately, with short-term lets, they've been hurt by COVID as well. So at the moment, a lot of providers have probably been reconsidering their position in the marketplace over the last 3 to 4 months, because lockdown kind of stopped people from doing a lot of travel, but also post-lockdown there has been a general nervousness around the UK for people to take trips away. Airbnb and short-term lets haven't been hit as hard as hotels have because they're easier to occupy as a single family unit, but just bear in mind that whole sector has been hit by people changing their travel plans overall. It's really, really key if you're using this as one of the strategies in your property portfolio to make sure you're complying with regulation. Investigate. Do you need a specific planning permission to let this property as a holiday let or short-term let in this particular area? Does your local authority require any specific licenses or any specific terms and conditions to be complied with when operating a property as a short-term let rather than a standard buy-to-let or HMO model? Make sure that you don't fall foul of this big data matching campaign from HMRC, making sure that all income and all expenses are fully reported on your personal or company tax return, depending on how your business is structured. And also, most importantly, make sure your property is fit for purpose. Short-term lets, Airbnb is a supply and demand market just like anything else in property. So it means that it doesn't work anywhere. Investigate the marketplace, make sure that you know there's really strong demand in the area, that there's not too much competition, do some testing to make sure that your property will be full the majority of the time, run your numbers conservatively with a big buffer in for voids, because remember in the short letting market you are going to have increased voids versus a standard buy-to-let or HMO style tenancy. And also make sure that the property is set up correctly with the right furniture in place, with good access controls, so that you don't turn a short-term accommodation, a serviced accommodation Airbnb strategy into a huge headache for yourself.